Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute greatest David versus Goliath stories in modern business history. We're talking about a tiny, wildly ambitious startup that stepped into the ring with century-old automotive giants and literally rewrote the rules of the road. Now, you might be wondering, how did a tiny startup with absolutely no factories force the oldest automakers to completely rethink their future? It's a question that still baffles industry veterans today. How did a company with zero history of building cars, no global dealer network, and definitely no century-old factories pull this off? Because on paper, what this startup attempted wasn't just difficult, it was considered pretty much impossible. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A world powered by gasoline. So imagine walking into a car dealership back in the early 2000s. You're stepping into this untouchable industry that's completely 100% dependent on fossil fuels. For over a century, the internal combustion engine was humanity's undisputed champion of transportation. Gas cars ruled the world. They were powerful, reliable, and completely mainstream. And electric cars? Well, they were widely dismissed as these slow, unattractive, highly experimental projects just for hardcore environmentalists. Nobody really considered them serious transportation. And the ultimate roadblock here, the real reason consumers and legacy automakers totally wrote off EVs, was this thing called range anxiety. Basically, it's the fear that an electric vehicle will just run out of power before reaching its destination or a charging station. Think about that paralyzing panic you get when your phone hits 1%, but applied to your entire vehicle, leaving you stranded on the side of the highway. Combined with a total lack of charging infrastructure back then, this fear made electric cars seem like a fundamentally flawed idea. Which brings us to Section 2. The startup that should fail. Enter our massive underdog. Now, in an industry where startups almost always die way before they even build a single production vehicle, this new company decided to take on the global giants anyway. In 2003, engineers Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning founded Tesla. The very next year, entrepreneur Elon Musk invested millions and joined the board, bringing in this massive vision for sustainable energy. By 2006, they revealed their first car, the Tesla Roadster. But just as they were getting off the ground, the 2008 global financial crisis hits, threatening to wipe out the whole shebang. And this brilliantly illustrates what they were going for. Instead of building some cheap, slow commuter car just to survive, they aimed to completely shatter that terrible reputation EVs had. The strategy was brilliant, and the specs of the Tesla Roadster proved it. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds, 0 to 60 in under 4. It offered over 200 miles of range on a single charge, and it used this revolutionary lithium-ion battery pack made up of thousands of small cells. The Roadster wasn't about selling millions of cars, right? It was a proof of concept. It proved that EVs absolutely did not have to sacrifice speed, excitement, or cool design. But, having a great prototype doesn't exactly pay the bills. In 2008, right as the global financial system was collapsing and banks were failing left and right, Tesla was mere weeks away from running out of cash. Failure meant total collapse. It was the ultimate gamble. Elon Musk actually invested his remaining personal fortune just to keep the company alive, reportedly securing the funding literally hours before they would have had to declare bankruptcy. It was a true moment of sheer survival. All right, moving on to Section 3, rewriting the automotive rules. So having miraculously survived that financial crisis, Tesla didn't want to just survive anymore. They wanted a full-on revolution. They started prepping the car that would redefine the entire auto industry. Enter the Model S. Now, instead of doing what the legacy guys did, trying to adapt heavy, clunky gasoline platforms, Tesla built the Model S from the ground up as an EV. They slapped the battery pack completely flat under the floor, which gave it this remarkably low center of gravity for incredible handling. They ditched dozens of physical dashboard buttons for a massive central touchscreen. And because there was no huge gas engine taking up the front, they gave us the front storage trunk, or the frunk, which, let's be honest, is still a very fun word to say. They completely maximized the unique perks of an electric architecture. But honestly, the most revolutionary feature was something you couldn't even see: over-the-air updates. This is the ability to wirelessly improve a vehicle's software, performance, and safety systems long after it's been purchased. Tesla literally turned the car into a connected computer. Just imagine waking up, walking out to your driveway, and finding out your car is suddenly faster, or has better brakes, or brand new features. Instead of degrading over time, the car evolved, kind of like your smartphone does. This represented an absolutely massive paradigm shift. Think about it. The traditional auto industry focused strictly on mechanical engineering. You bought a car and its features were completely static, never changing until the day it went to the junkyard. Tesla, on the other hand, combined mechanical engineering with software engineering. They created this ecosystem where the hardware and software talk to each other, meaning the vehicle actually improves over time. It's a real game changer. But to make these incredible electric vehicles mainstream and actually affordable, Tesla had to solve a colossal physics and economics problem: the battery. They needed to scale battery production to levels nobody had ever seen before. And that meant risking billions of dollars to build these massive manufacturing facilities they called Gigafactories. The financial risk here was just off the charts. If consumer demand didn't show up, these billion-dollar factories would completely bankrupt the company. But they placed the bet, knowing that the more batteries they turned out, the cheaper they would eventually become. Which takes us to Section 4, the giants fight back. As Tesla's tech improved, their sales totally surged. And as consumers realized these weren't just great electric cars, they were just great cars, period, well, the legacy automakers finally woke up to an existential threat. Panic spread through global boardrooms. They realized their century of engine expertise was suddenly a huge liability. Look at the monumental challenge they now faced. To compete, they had to modernize factories built strictly for gasoline cars. They had to retrain millions of workers. They had to completely rebuild supply chains that relied on thousands of mechanical engine parts. And oh yeah, they had to suddenly figure out how to compete in software and AI. It was a massive wake-up call. Meanwhile, Tesla was facing its own harsh reality as the new industry benchmark. Elon Musk famously called it production hell. Because, it is one thing to build a few thousand premium sports cars. It is a monumental, incredibly complex challenge to scale up to building millions of cars. Tesla really struggled with build quality, fit and finish inconsistencies, and intense global public scrutiny. Every single delay and minor imperfection made international headlines. The pressure was immense. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Tesla handled a global crisis compared to the legacy giants. When the COVID-19 pandemic caused a massive global semiconductor chip shortage, traditional automakers were pretty much forced to completely halt production. But because Tesla is a software-first company, their engineers rapidly rewrote portions of the vehicle's code to work with alternative chips that were actually available. Their agility allowed them to navigate a crisis that literally paralyzed the rest of the industry. All right, let's wrap things up with Section 5, beyond just a car company. When we really zoom out, we realize their ultimate goal was never actually just about building cars. The cars were really just the first step in creating an entire sustainable ecosystem. Just take a look at the next frontier here. Tesla is leveraging billions of miles of driving data to develop advanced autopilot and AI driving systems. They're building large-scale battery grid storage to help stabilize renewable energy for whole homes and cities. They're even prototyping humanoid robotics for factory automation. Now, it's definitely worth noting that their autonomous driving tech does face ongoing debates and strict regulatory scrutiny regarding safety and readiness. But the sheer scope of these projects, it shows they are trying to solve massive global energy and automation challenges, not just sell a few sedans. And this brings us right to their core mission statement: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Honestly, whether another massive automaker eventually catches up and sells more EVs in the future or not, Tesla's massive, undeniable legacy is that they dragged an entire unwilling industry kicking and screaming into the electric era. They forced this transition to happen decades faster than it ever would have otherwise. Ultimately, Tesla's true legacy isn't just a fancy battery or an electric motor. It is the act of challenging deeply held assumptions about what is possible. They proved that a startup with a bold vision could topple a 100-year-old status quo simply by refusing to accept the established facts of an industry. Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to take away from this explainer. If a tiny startup could rewrite the rules of one of the world's oldest, most entrenched industries, what other impossible rules in our world are just waiting to be rewritten? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it sparked your curiosity to go out and look for the next Goliath just waiting to be disrupted.
If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe to Wealth Decoded for more of our business, finance, and tech explainers. Turn on the bell to get notified when a new video is uploaded. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.